February 1972. 3 months after D.B. Cooper vanished into the stormy night, a mysterious envelope arrived at the FBI field office in Portland. No return address, no fingerprints, no markings except one line written in a rushed hand, "For Agent Harris." Inside was a single piece of paper, yellowed, folded, and torn at the edges as if it had traveled far. The letter began without introduction, without apology, without fear. "I am alive," it said, and that should answer your first question. Agent Harris read the line again and again, trying to understand whether it was a confession or a cruel trick. The letter continued, written in a calm, almost educated tone. "I did what I had to do, not for money, not for fame, but because some men are born into cages, and some choose to break out." Harris leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. Was this D.B. Cooper? Was this the man who jumped into the sky and humiliated the FBI? The writer claimed he had landed safely, though he refused to say where. He claimed the money was safe, though he didn't specify what that meant. And the final line, that was the line that haunted Harris for years. "If you want the truth, don't look in the sky. Look at the people who live beneath it." For the first time since the hijacking, Harris felt the case shifting. If this letter was real, then Cooper wasn't dead. He wasn't injured. He wasn't hiding in a cave or buried in the river. He was alive, watching, moving like a ghost through America. But the strangest part wasn't the handwriting. It wasn't the tone. It wasn't even the timing. It was the feeling Harris couldn't shake. The feeling that the man who wrote this letter knew him personally, knew his routines, knew the pressure he carried, knew exactly how to whisper into the cracks of his doubts. The letter wasn't just a message. It was a taunt, a challenge, a reminder that the greatest skyjacker in American history hadn't vanished at all. He had just begun, inside the sterile confines of an FBI interrogation room. Agent Harris stared across the metal table at the gas station owner, Eddie Ward. The air was thick with tension. "Tell me about his face again." Harris's voice was low, cutting through the silence. Eddie shifted, uncomfortable under the single bare bulb. It didn't match," he stammered. "Not a disguise. The face looked real, lived in. But the eyes were like someone else was trapped inside, looking out." Harris leaned forward, his own eyes narrowed. "And this man, who looked like a ghost, he bought supplies? Rope, a map, canned food?" Eddie just nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. Before he walked out, Harris pressed, "You asked him a question." Eddie looked haunted by the memory. "I asked if he was traveling far." There was a long pause. The camera focuses on Eddie's trembling lips. He turned and said, "Farther than you can imagine." Then he just walked into the darkness. The next morning, Harris knew. The footprints led into the woods and stopped cold, as if the man and his wrong face had been erased from the earth. By the end of that week, the case had changed direction again, not because of new evidence, but because of a single terrifying theory that began spreading inside the FBI. What if D.B. Cooper was not one man, but part of something much larger? Agent Harris didn't want to believe it, but patterns started to emerge, patterns too big to ignore. The careful planning, the military-style jump, the knowledge of aircraft doors, the calmness under pressure, the confident escape. These were traits of someone trained, disciplined, possibly even part of a hidden network. A blackboard filled with scribbles stood behind Harris as he presented the theory. "Cooper didn't T-jump to disappear," he said. "He jumped to return to something." Some agents laughed it off. Others shifted uncomfortably. But Harris pressed on. There were reports, unconfirmed, but intriguing, that a man matching Cooper's physical build had been seen months earlier training with parachutes in a remote part of Oregon. Not military, not recreational, private, secretive, purposeful. Harris revealed the most unsettling piece of the puzzle. This wasn't his first jump, and I don't think it was his last. The room fell silent. If Cooper was alive, if he was trained, if he was connected, then the FBI wasn't chasing a missing man. They were chasing a ghost, a professional, a mastermind who had prepared for years to perform one perfect crime and vanish into a new life. And the worst part? If Cooper had returned to an organized group, there was only one reason he would send a letter now. He wanted the FBI to know that he was still out there, still watching. For weeks after the hijacking, the skies over Washington roared with helicopters, but found nothing. The FBI coordinated one of the largest airborne searches in American history. Planes flew grid by grid, combing thousands of acres, forests, rivers, cliffs, all mapped and marked with precision. But the wind that night was unpredictable, strong, chaotic. It tossed Cooper into a region so vast that even the most detailed search maps meant nothing. Search teams on the ground slogged through mud up to their knees. They examined every broken branch, every disturbed patch of dirt, every possible landing zone. Pilots said if Cooper landed wrong, on a tree, on rocks, or in the river, he would have died instantly. But there was no body, no torn parachute, no clothing, no footprints, not even the clip of a briefcase. All that money, still missing. As days turned into weeks, frustration grew. Agents argued about wind drift calculations, jump altitude, and possible landing zones. Some believed Cooper never survived. Others whispered a darker question. What if he survived, but wasn't alone? What if someone was waiting for him on the ground? By the end of the month, the search was officially scaled back. And with that, the mystery deepened. The forest had swallowed Cooper whole, and America was left with a ghost in the trees, one that would haunt investigators for decades. Years passed, leads faded, files gathered dust. But then, something miraculous happened. In 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand near the Columbia River. What he found shocked the world. Bundles of money, old, decayed, stuck together from water damage. But the serial numbers matched the ransom cash given to D.B. Cooper. It was the first physical evidence in the case. FBI agents rushed to the site, marking coordinates, analyzing soil layers, studying how river currents might carry the bills. But the discovery only raised more questions. Why were only some bills found? Why were they buried in sand, intentionally? Did Cooper place them as a decoy? Or did they wash up from a failed landing? The FBI considered dozens of theories. One idea believed Cooper died during the jump, and the packets drifted downstream over years. But the rubber bands around the money were still partially intact, something impossible if they'd been submerged since 1971. Another theory suggested Cooper survived, kept the money, and discarded this portion to confuse investigators. But the oddest theory of all was that someone else, years later, found Cooper's remains and scattered part of the cash to mislead the world. The discovery of money didn't solve the case. It made it stranger, because if Cooper died, who moved the money? And if he lived, where did he disappear to?